Hey guys, it's Mason here, and today I'm going to talk to you about games and expensive DLC. Now, I've been gaming for upwards of 20 years, and I've been watching this debate slowly unfold, and I just can't stay silent on the subject anymore. DLC and games. Everyone lately and increasingly is complaining about DLC and season passes and all of that jazz, but they all seem to be missing the real issues here and the cause for this new DLC model as opposed to the pass, where DLC can cost $40 to $50, almost as much as the base game. So I'm going to go explain the reasons this is happening and why it's not as bad as some people are making it out to be. Inflation. Something people don't consider. They don't consider that games have stayed the same price from between the years 1995 all the way up until the year 2015 where we currently are. Now, if the gaming industry adjusted for inflation correctly, a $60 game in 95 would have cost $76.89 in 2005, or $93.64 today. But, in spite of things, it's remained $60, and there's a few reasons why, which I'll get to later. Also, the cost of a game grows over time. In 1994, Mortal Kombat 2 cost $10 million to make. $10 million. In 2004, Halo 2 released with just under a $20 million budget, which was quite small for a game of that caliber at the time. In the year 2013, just a few years ago, Battlefield 4 released with $100 million in production cost. That's 10 times as much as 1994. But do you see Battlefield 4 costing you $600? No, it's still $60, the same as it would have been if the game had been released in 94. Another thing people fail to remember is complexity of the games. In 1994, Mortal Kombat 2 was a relatively simplistic game by today's standards. Nowadays, a single guy in his basement can create more change in the gaming industry creating a game in his basement than a whole team of people could in 1994. Minecraft, anybody? Now, some people seem to be forgetting that with $100 million or more on the line in production costs, game publishers have to set strict dates in which the game developers have to abide by. So you have to ask yourself, would you rather have a slightly smaller but perfectly polished game on release, or would you rather have a big buggy game that's almost unplayable for the first couple weeks that it's out? Replayability and value. People also are forgetting that the replayability of a game has increased 100 times what it used to be. Before, when you paid $60, you got the game, and if the developer really cared, a DLC or maybe two. With all that, you got around 200 solid hours of game time. Maybe. Now most games, at their base, have upwards of 500 hours for the big titles, some even 1,000 with the DLC. I've personally sunk in 1,000 hours plus alone on Battlefield 4's base game, and probably 2,000 in Fallout 3's, in which I've never even gotten the DLC for. This means that games aren't only the same price, but that every dollar you're spending is being spent on something of greater value, which is really important to note, because it's not just what you're paying, it's also what you get out of it. Now, what this is all coming down to, the big unpopular opinion, it's right here, ladies and gentlemen. The DLC model that we're currently seeing is actually good for everyone. Number one, it keeps the prices of games at $60, which is reasonable and not too expensive for most people, which makes a game accessible to those with less money. Not everyone has a lot of extra cash to buy new games. Keeping the price relatively low like this gives people with less money the ability to not only enjoy the game, but remain a part of the gaming community. There are plenty of people who don't have the money to pay more than $60 for a game right now, and some who simply don't want to, as they find the base game enough to enjoy for the amount of money they want to spend. Number 2, it allows the game development to be funded after the game's release, which keeps it fun and interesting for gamers that have the extra money for it. And as I mentioned earlier, games should be way more expensive, almost $100, and by displacing the cost of development to the gamers who can and want to afford it, allows the game to continue development in a more meaningful way than it ever could in the past. This keeps the game and community fresh for longer for those who deeply enjoy it, and allows developers to give back to their community even better. 3. A tailored experience. If the game was packaged higher, like say at the $93.64 range, like it should be for inflation, you couldn't then wait to buy the DLC, as you'd already have paid for it. But now, You can pick and choose if you want to pay for that extra content. Maybe you're not interested in the extra content. Maybe the extra content they're adding just isn't your style. Maybe the base game is just enough for how much money you want to spend. Would you rather be paying $93 and getting DLC shoved down your throat, or having the option to buy the base game, which is what the game is supposed to be, and maybe having a choice to buy extra content later? This gives gamers the ability to tailor their experience to the way they want it to be experienced. You don't have to have stuff shoved down your throat, and you don't have to pay more for it. You get to pay less, but get more out of this arrangement. Number 4. Something people don't often think about is security. This model of selling DLC also adds security to the game, as you know whether you pay for the DLC or not, the game publisher is more than likely going to spend time tweaking and making improvements in between DLCs, because if they don't, they'll miss out on selling the DLC to the people who don't buy it right away, which is most of the community. Without DLC like this, it would be a total mystery whether or not the game would ever be improved if it had any issues on release. Before this DLC model, some companies would be supportive and continue to improve, but others wouldn't, and just churn out the same game once a year, hoping people don't notice too many issues in the meantime, and trying to keep them buying their new game. Now I know some of you are going to say, but there's alternatives. Why do I have to buy DLC? Well, you don't have to buy the DLC if you don't want to, for one, although a lot of people tend to, because usually the DLC is quality content. But, on to the alternatives. Number 1. Raising the price to one that would fully cover all production costs of the game, which could put games up to $90 at start, which honestly, I just find sad. Disallowing access to the gaming community based on someone's ability to pay is a disheartening thought, and I don't think it's the way to go. Number 2. Microtransactions. These are seldom good, and even when implemented well, they still tend to leave a bad taste in your mouth. I think it's enough said on that subject. Although this DLC model may not be the perfect system, it is widely doing more good than it is harm, unlike the current stance that most people are taking right now. By keeping the gaming community whole and growing the community in ways people don't seem to realize. So while a lot of people are complaining that developers are trying to scam them out of their money by butchering the base game, maybe next time you could ask them to consider this. Well guys, I hope I could bring another side to this deeply complex issue that seems to be popping up repeatedly in our community. Hit that follow and subscribe button, or leave a comment if you would, to support what I'm trying to build and create here. I would really appreciate it, and remember guys, it's been Mason here.